You know that highly specific, deeply unsettling feeling when the sky suddenly turns that weird bruised shade of green?
Oh, yeah. The wind just completely drops dead.
Right. The leaves just freeze in place and the air gets so heavy it almost feels, I don't know, hard to breathe.
And then warning sirens start screaming.
Exactly.
And the atmospheric pressure plummets. You can literally feel it in your inner ear, kind of like the cabin of an airplane suddenly dropping.
Yeah, it's an incredibly primal moment where your body just knows something violent is about to happen, even before you see a funnel cloud on the horizon.
It really is. It's that exact moment you realize that all the concrete, the steel, the drywall we've built around ourselves, it's actually pretty flimsy.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
But welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a really incredible intersection today, specifically exploring a fascinating discussion titled The Spiritual and Scientific Dimensions of Extreme Weather.
It's a really unique source text.
It is. We're looking at how humans process catastrophic events by bridging meteorology, human psychology, and theology. And I want to say right up front, we are covering both scientific concepts and religious perspectives today, specifically Christian viewpoints from the text.
Right, and it's important to note we aren't taking sides here.
Definitely not. We are not endorsing any of the scientific or theological viewpoints presented. Our mission today is strictly to unpack the original source material and convey the ideas exactly as the authors framed them, exploring how different people make sense of natural disasters.
We're just looking at the profound synthesis the authors attempt. They're trying to bridge two fundamentally different ways humans process catastrophic events: the observable mechanics of the physical world and the search for deeper meaning.
Okay, let's unpack this. The core question driving the source is one a lot of you listening are probably wrestling with. Why are these massive disasters getting more frequent and destructive?
And that question immediately splits our reality in two.
How so?
Well, on one hand, you have the observable mechanics of the atmosphere, right? The science. But on the other, you have the psychological and spiritual reality of the people trying to survive underneath that atmosphere.
Right. And to understand the search for meaning, we really first have to understand the sheer physical and psychological reality of the destruction.
We do. We have to start with the meteorological facts the text provides.
Yeah, let's talk about tornadoes, especially in the United States.
Yeah.
In Tornado Alley, it's not just a simple matter of hot air bumping into cold air.
Right. The geography plays a huge role.
It really does. You have the Gulf of Mexico pumping up all this warm, humid air, and it's slamming into cold, dry air, cascading over the Rocky Mountains. I always visualize it like a massive atmospheric pressure cooker.
That's a great analogy.
You've got the intense heat and humidity acting as the boiling water, and a cold front acting as a heavy lid. It's a violent physical reaction that completely ignores whoever happens to be living underneath it.
And the source highlights that scientists are studying changing climate patterns, right? Because the increasing intensity of these storms is a major focus. The baseline energy of the atmosphere is rising.
So the boiler under the pressure cooker is essentially getting turned up.
Exactly. But the text doesn't just stop at weather patterns. And what's fascinating here is how the source bridges this physical vulnerability with a profound psychological fear.
Oh, the psychological toll is massive. Have you ever found yourself checking a weather radar app like 5 times a day during storm season?
Guilty, for sure.
Right. And that hypervigilance isn't just people being overly cautious. It's a recognized psychological response. The material links these events directly to chronic human anxiety.
Because it's not a one-off event anymore.
No. The source describes this brutal cycle where entire communities rally, clean up the debris, pour their life savings into rebuilding, and then
they face the exact same existential threat just months later.
Yes, the whiplash is just staggering.
The uncertainty of when the next storm will hit becomes this dominant force in the lives of those in affected areas. You rebuild the walls of your house, but you're constantly listening for the sirens.
Right, and while science explains the how of the pressure cooker exploding, the wind shear, the updrafts, humans naturally crave an explanation for the why.
We are wired to need a reason.
Exactly. Why does suffering occur on such a massive scale? And this psychological desperation is exactly what opens the door to the spiritual dimensions discussed in the source.
Which is where the deep dive shifts into how the source material applies a biblical lens to extreme weather, building on that human need to understand the why of suffering.
So they bring in prophecy to do this. The text references Matthew 24:7, where Jesus speaks of earthquakes and increasing troubles across the earth in the last days.
Right, it frames the increasing intensity of these storms as spiritual markers.
Yeah, for the believers mentioned in the text, these extreme disasters serve as stark reminders of the world's fragility. It's like an alarm system signaling that the current state of the world is temporary.
But the text goes into a much darker theological concept too. Nature is part of a spiritual battle.
Oh, right, the spiritual warfare aspect.
Yeah. They cite the book of Job from the Old Testament. In the story, a powerful wind destroys Job's house and kills his children.
That's a really heavy narrative.
It is. The text uses it to show Satan's direct involvement in bringing suffering. It describes Satan as seeking to, quote, steal, kill, and destroy. The idea is that environments of intense fear and destruction are where darkness thrives.
Okay, but, wait, I have to play the skeptic here to ensure a rigorous discussion.
Go for it.
Because if people start actively mapping a tornado onto a cosmic spiritual battle and blaming demons for tornadoes, doesn't that make them ignore real scientific causes?
I see where you're going with
Like,
that.
doesn't that lead to a dangerous lack of practical preparation?
Yeah.
Why pour concrete for a storm cellar if it's just a spiritual attack?
Well, this raises an important question, and it's the classic tension between faith and practical agency. But if we point back to the source text, it actually acknowledges this exact danger.
Oh, it does.
Yes. It insists that recognizing spiritual realities should absolutely not negate scientific responsibility or understanding human environmental impact. It advocates for a multi-layered perspective.
So it's not an either situation.
Not at all. You can map the storm spiritually to find meaning and agency, but you still have a duty to improve infrastructure and prepare your community.
That makes a lot of sense. So the source establishes that extreme weather creates this massive environment of fear, both from physical destruction and potential spiritual turmoil.
Right.
Which naturally pivots our discussion to how the text suggests humans can actually combat that fear.
And the antidote they provide is a major shift in focus.
Yeah. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because you have this vivid contrast, right? The chaos of a violent storm versus the biblical antidote provided in the text.
Which is Jesus constantly telling people, do not be afraid.
Exactly. The text highlights a specific demonstration of authority over nature. They bring up the story from Mark 4:39.
Right, the one on the Sea of Galilee.
Yeah, where Jesus and his disciples are in a boat during a violent storm. The boat is swamping, everyone is panicking, and Jesus just stood in the boat and said, "Peace, be still," and the wind immediately stopped.
The source uses that to illustrate that chaos is not beyond ultimate authority. But, and this is key, how does that synthesize with the physical reality today?
Well, Americans are investing billions in disaster preparation, right? Stronger buildings, early warning systems, emergency response teams.
And better predictive technology. The text actually calls this preparation wisdom.
I really like that framing. Validating the science.
Yes, but the source uses these spiritual stories to remind humanity of a limit. No matter how much technology we build, life is never fully under human control.
We can track the pressure cooker, but we can't command the wind to stop.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the source uses extreme weather as a catalyst. These storms force society to confront massive overlapping realities all at once.
Like scientific responsibility and environmental stewardship.
Yes, along with human vulnerability in that deep search for spiritual meaning.
So what does this all mean? To summarize for you listening, processing extreme weather isn't just about reading a barometer.
It's so much more than that.
According to the source material, it's a complex collision of scientific data, psychological resilience, and for many, deeply held spiritual beliefs about order, chaos, and authority.
It's a very multifaceted human experience.
And whether you look at a storm through a scientific lens, a spiritual lens, or both, the ultimate takeaway from the text is really about maintaining the human spirit. It's about finding peace even in the middle of chaos.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder today, building on those themes of technology and vulnerability.
Yeah, what's your take?
Well, think about this. Today, early warning systems can give us exact countdowns to when a tornado will strike. But in that tiny, agonizing window of time between a scientific prediction and the physical impact of the storm, where does the human mind go?
Wow, that waiting period is terrifying.
It is. Does our hyper-advanced technology actually make us feel more in control of nature? Or does it simply create a new, modern space for spiritual contemplation and anxiety that our ancestors, who were struck suddenly, without warning, never had to face?